name's Glenn Collins, as I said earlier, and my role at CDI is I head the EduGear division and also look after the Chrome practice and all of the surrounding services that go with that. So professional development, maintenance, warranty services, all of those other things. So we've been working a long time in the Chrome sector, almost since the beginning. It's beginning into education. And one of our early discoveries was GoGuardian. And so today we've invited GoGuardian to join us, and they're going to tell you a little bit about some of the things you were interested in terms of better utilizing the device in the classroom, better management, some of the new things that they brought to the table that are pretty cool. And I just want to kind of give you a brief understanding. Again, I don't know how many of you are familiar with CDI, but we are an education-focused technology company that provides ways for you to improve learning outcomes. I mean, at the end of the day, we try to provide you real good value with technology that is leading edge, or some of it's refurbished, so kind of all over the map. We have solutions for all kinds of products, etc. This just gives you a little idea of our size. This is kind of CDI by the numbers. I didn't get you on the phone to do a commercial, so I'm going to kind of wander through this relatively quick. But as you can see, we ship about 40,000 units a month into education. So we do business with either many people on the phone or many people like the folks here on the phone, and we will be happy to continue to provide value to you from a hardware or software standpoint, or through our partners like GoGuardian. So from a business standpoint, we have everything from enterprise solutions to accessories. My focus is primarily on mobile devices and classroom devices, and that's where our focus is going to be on today. And we do have our own line of products under the EduGear brand, which is my responsibility. We have software, hardware, carts, cabinets, etc., that you can see on the screen. So this is my 30-second commercial at the beginning. I appreciate your patience. I'm now going to spend a minute and turn it over to Brian from GoGuardian. And Brian, I'll let you introduce yourself. Let me unmute you, and I'm going to give you make you the host.
Wonderful.
You'll jump in, but just so that as an entree, I guess, to Brian, we now know that Chromebooks are the #1 selling device in education. And as I said, GoGuardian was one of the first partners with Google early in the transition to Chromebooks. We've been partners with them for about 3 years, and I think they've got some really cool and interesting and innovative product that they're going to talk about right now.
Yeah, well, thank you, Glenn. As he mentioned, my name is Brian. I'm with GoGuardian, and I work really closely with the CDI team to make sure that all of you are well taken care of. So right now at GoGuardian, we have multiple products. Based on the polls, I'm going to spend most of my time on the Google Admin or GoGuardian for Admin product, which is content filtering, monitoring, and theft recovery. And I'll even talk about some of the new stuff that's coming out. I saw some of the questions that were popping up. I'll try to monitor those as we go, just so I can answer some of those. And if not, we'll follow up with you afterwards. So I've logged into my GoGuardian admin screen. And this is where we see all of our computers. We see everything that's going on in the district. It's something that's important to remember is that we're cloud-based. So there is nothing on your network. There's no appliances to keep up with, nothing else to update. And the deployment to the student devices is simply just a Chrome extension. So it can be pushed out through the Google Admin console really quickly and gives quite a bit of flexibility. And I'll show you some of that. So as I said, this is our initial dashboard that you're greeted with. On the far left, we have the navigation panel that just takes you quickly to the different parts of the application that you want to go to. So I don't want to translate that. So taking just a quick lap around, we have the timeline that shows usage and flagged terms or flagged activity that's going on right now. This is in an artificial intelligence lab, so there's only 10 computers in there right now, or 10 Chromebooks. but I can see it takes a snapshot every couple of seconds to see what's going on. I can see the number of flagged sites, blocked attempts, Google Docs, YouTube videos, anything that's going on, and of course, all of the Google searches. We see trending sites. On testing days, we would expect to see that go up. If Justin Bieber releases a new video, we're going to see the YouTube go up. And of course, we have all of our top sites down at the bottom.
Hey, Brian, if I can jump in for a sec.
Yeah, go ahead.
So because about 80% of the people have not seen the program at all, maybe you could just take a one step back and explain the difference between this and the teacher module, and really that this is kind of an extension of Chrome management and how it integrates with that, and then go into the features just so they get an idea. I am also getting a lot of questions already about multiple platforms in terms of Windows, ISO, etc. So you may just want to address that as you go through the session as well.
Yeah, I'm not able to see the questions, so let me see.
Well, I'll make sure that we get through them all, but I'm just starting to see a little bit of, help me understand how this compares to some other products. Yep. And I know some of the other products are multi-platform, so just talk a little bit about that.
For sure. So let me go back. GoGuardian as a company, we are very tightly woven with Google. Many of our developers are from Google. We have access to them. So before we release anything, we work with them to make sure that there's no incompatibilities. We also work with them to find out what they're going to be releasing next to make sure we're ahead of everything. This application that I'm showing right now, GoGuardian for Admin, is for the helping you become SIPA compliant. It is the filtering and monitoring and theft recovery. The other program that Glenn mentioned is Teacher. And that's what we decided. This is it can be a bit cumbersome to have 30 students with Chromebooks and a teacher that now we're having a whole change in how education is being delivered. So Teacher is an application that gives more control over the student devices where the teacher can see what's on them. But more importantly than just seeing what's on them, being able to push resources out to the students and being able to interact with the students. So it really leads to a more effective and more efficient teaching environment. And I can show that briefly as well. Now, when it comes to multiple operating systems or different platforms being device agnostic, we really decided to hone in on the Chrome platform. And it's not just Chromebooks. So if you're running in a Windows environment, you can use a group policy to force Chrome browser. And as I mentioned, we're a Chrome extension. So it'll function similar to how it would on a Chromebook. But we've decided to take the Google route. That's what the majority of the products going to school districts are. So instead of dabbling in a couple different areas, we decided to be laser focused on Chrome and do it better than anybody else. All right, so I'll jump in, and Glenn, just stop me if there's an important question that comes up. When it comes to flagged activity, these are things that are not necessarily going to be blocked. These are terms that are flagged for a particular reason. They can be categorized, but we also assign a threat level to them. So if somebody or a group of students, right now you can see that this particular website, and I won't click on it because sometimes inappropriate things do pop up, but right now it has a threat level of 81. It doesn't necessarily mean it's blocked. It's kind of in the no category right now, but it is looking at the content on the page. And because there's 12 or more people, it's something that might warrant a look. If it were somebody looking at something related to self-harm or harming others, that threat level would immediately skyrocket and alert somebody to intervene. We can add our own.
Brian, I do have a question while you're talking about filtering. It says what sites need to be open in order to for GoGuardian to function properly. We use Rocket Lightspeed to filter out networks. So maybe you can talk about how it works with other filters and how it filters.
Yeah, so this actually might be a good point to jump into our next version. Let me go into a more traditional sense of the whitelist, blacklist, because we're talking about URLs. Traditional content filters, including this version right now, use URL filtering. So if it's www.youwillnotgethere.com and that's blocked, nobody's going to get to that site. There's different ways around it. There's .net, .org, all different types of things. And then, of course, in Google searches, you can look for particular words. This is the way that things have been done for a long time. This is part of being SIPA compliant, is having the different categories with subcategories that can be blocked. What we're doing, we're moving into an exciting new world with machine learning. And machine learning is similar to what Alexa and Google Play and Netflix, all of these services now are using AI to build profiles to better understand what people are expecting before they ask for it. So if you're watching Netflix and it says, based on your history, you might like these shows, it's because they have tons of data and then they run that against it. That's one of the advantages we have of being a cloud service, is that we've collected all of this data and we've used it for machine learning now, so that we're no longer concerned with what the URL is. If it's www.porn.com, that may be a cooking website. I'm just throwing it out there, but we're no longer concerned with what the actual URL is, or what the keywords for searching were. What we're looking for is content on the page and intent of the person searching. So the example of that is if somebody did a search for chicken breast, typically on a filter, that would be blocked. That would be flagged. It has inappropriate terms. What machine learning does is it says, we're going to let this one play out a little bit and see if there's anything on the page. And when the student or teacher clicks on allrecipes.com and goes to chicken cordon bleu, the server realizes that that is completely appropriate and there's no alerts, there's nothing that happens. What we're also building in, or have built in, is that if a student starts leading down the path of an inappropriate search, we'll send a little nudge, a little pop-up that says, are you sure you want to do that? And that's oftentimes enough to let the student know that they need to turn around and stay on task. If it continues to escalate, then it is open. We have a way to track it and log it and open up basically a ticket, so that if it's a self-harm issue, it will alert the school counselor or the principal, and then once it's been properly dealt with, it can be closed. So a whole new world, and nobody else right now is doing anything with machine learning. And what that means is that it's going to really drastically reduce the amount of administrative time that is put into filtering and blocking and maintaining that system. Because there's many new websites that pop up every day and many new ways to thwart them. But our system will be able to get ahead of it, or stay ahead of it. I'm sure there's going to be more questions about that. I'll circle back around on that as well, and we'll get some more information out about that. That is going to be released in June. We've got it out in alpha right now in about 200 school districts, compiling more data, but June it's going to go full-fledged, so a couple more weeks. So back to standard content filtering. We've got the categories. We can go through, we can see the sites. These would be sites that are already built in, and because we're crowdsourced, you don't have to do a lot to it. You can do the run peel method, the set it and forget it. If we have a district in Ohio blacklist something, we do confirm it, and then once we blacklist it on our side, it's automatically done on everybody's. So it really just depends on how active you want to be on this. For YouTube, this is one of those ones that's always been a little bit tricky for districts. Do we want it? Do we not want it? It has a lot of great content. With YouTube filtering, we can turn it on or off, but we can also do age restriction. We can block the comments. A lot of times those comments on YouTube videos can be completely different from what the video is, and people have a chance to argue about it or different beliefs or whatever. So we can completely strip out the comments. Same with the sidebar. Those suggested videos that pop up on the side oftentimes have nothing to do with what you're looking at. So we get rid of those. So what you're left with is just pure YouTube video of what you're wanting to see. We can create blacklist of channels, of categories. So if we don't want anime, we can kill that category, or even a particular channel.
Brian, I'm getting a few questions about other filters. So people are pointing out that they have filters in their firewall, or they have, other filtering products. So maybe you just touch a little bit on how this works in conjunction with those, and maybe allows you to get a little more granular. The YouTube is a perfect example.
Yeah, for sure. So with our filter, this new version, you'll be able to set policies. So if you're already running a content filter in a mixed environment, or you have it on a firewall, ours can still be run in flagging or in monitoring mode. So it's not actively blocking anything, but it will still record and keep track of all of the data that's taking place. So if there is an incident or you need additional information, or just to make sure that your current filter is working as it should, we'll still be able to report everything back. And things like any of the really big issues, we'll still be able to notify the appropriate people. Something else that's important to note too, and I'll get right back to YouTube, but something else that's important to note is off-campus filtering. If you have a one-to-one environment where people are taking the devices home, we now can do different types of policies. One would be the SIPA starter. It's just the basic things that would be open and closed. We can apply it to the different organizational units. We do take the OUs from your Google admin console and we mirror those. So there's no additional setup on that, but that means you can apply different policies to high school or to middle school or elementary. We can then, if you have a student that, or after school, your high schoolers, a little bit older, maybe they're working on a different project. So we open up social media for them. We're still monitoring it. So if there's cyberbullying taking place, we're still able to see it. We'll still report on it, but it won't block. Next day they come back to school, then they're back on the regular during the school hours policy. We haven't decided officially to call it, but we have what we're calling right now a penalty box. And the penalty box would be if you have a student that just cannot stay on task, and we don't really want to punish them by taking the technology because they still have things that they need to complete. We can put them in a penalty box, and that can be a very strict policy that allows them to go to just a pre-described or a preset number of websites. It could be testing websites or school resources, but it doesn't allow them to do anything else. Back to YouTube. With the YouTube, we could go through and block everything. We can blacklist everything except for one channel. If your high school has a YouTube channel that they want, that's all they'll be able to see. So it is handy to have it that customizable.
There's a question about group-based filtering as opposed to user-based.
Okay.
So they just wanted to make sure that you could do group-based filtering as opposed to just by individuals.
Right. And it gets as granular as you want it to be. So when you're setting up policies, you can create as many policies as you want. So you could have a policy for the Central High School biology class, and just that one class has their own policy. It could go down by grade levels. It could be done by OU. It's as wide or as granular as you want it to be.
And then another question was about time. Can you do it by time? Or so in other words, you can geofence something. Can you geotime, or can you time filter something so they have access? Maybe at lunchtime you give them more access, and during other times you don't.
Absolutely. We can do different times. We can do different IP ranges. Time is typically the way that people do it the most, and that's right here. So in the policies, we would do scheduling just right here, so for the 9th grade school, we can apply different policies to it and even different times. Yep. And that was one of the things that we went out and did some roundtables with different districts, and that's one of the big things they asked for, especially with how frequently students are taking the devices home now. Timing, scheduling the policies was big.
So the other question, I guess, is if somebody was in the penalty box, would they still be allowed to use Google Docs, or are they shut down?
Well, and that's a great question. The penalty box is designed to have whatever they want. So if the administrator or teacher or principal decides that that student should have Google Docs, that can be added to it. If that's the only thing that they're allowed to have, that's all they're going to be allowed to have.
And the other question was, can you create a policy for single user?
Yes. Yes. So right now, here's our create policy tab. Under here, I can see how many people this policy is affecting. So our main policy is on 14 OUs. We have 2 bypass codes, just over 9,000 users on this particular one. This is our strict policy that we've added. And this would be for maybe our elementary schools. I can go and see which OUs it's affecting. So we've got the strict one on 9th and 10th grade at Pittman High School. But that could be a single policy down to 1 student. Yeah.
Okay, and then there was a question, I guess, on how does GoGuardian handle YouTube plugins through a browser? So if their filter blocks a particular site, would GoGuardian try to circumvent that policy?
I would imagine that if they're blocking the site, it's going to be blocked. Typically, it's whatever's most restrictive wins.
Okay, so you don't override their filter, in other words.
No, we wouldn't. No, we wouldn't override a filter.
Okay.
And the opposite of that is true as well. It's just going to take whatever is most restrictive.
Okay, and so there was a couple of comments about they were hoping to learn to manage. So people, I think, were hoping we'd go through the Google console today. Really, unfortunately, we are prepared to do that, but whoever was looking for that information, if you would prefer to do it in a smaller environment, would be happy to do that for you. So Brian, maybe you can just touch on how this does interact with the Chrome management, and how you would utilize this as opposed to or enhancing your experience with the Chrome management.
Yeah, so there's a couple different things. For really the most part, the way we interact with the Google Admin Console is that's how we're deployed. So you go through, you pick which OUs you want, and then we assign you an extension, and that extension is pushed out. And after that, there's not much interaction. Now, if you have a lot of Chromebooks in your district, we have another product called Fleet, and Fleet is a bolt-on product. Let me see if I can get into it here. Fleet would be an add-on product for the Google Admin Console, and it's more asset tracking or asset management. So it keeps track of the asset IDs. CDI does special asset tagging for you. We can tie it back to the serial numbers, but then you can also see what version is on the device, who is checked out to, which OU it is, what model number it is, and even the repairs that that particular device has had. So if you keep track of cost for school or for parents paying it back or insurance purposes, we do have that ability to keep track of all of that.
Okay.
And then yes.
So there was a couple other questions. And this is a question that we get all the time is, what is the most popular way for students to try to bypass GoGuardian, and how can we circumvent it?
So that's great. I can tell you generically, the most common is probably trying to load up another extension that's like a really lightweight browser. But because we have so many searches out on the internet right now, that it's rare for a student to find a way around it. And once they do, we shut it down pretty quickly.
And so I guess further to that, the next question was, can VPNs be installed on Chromebooks and possibly defeat GoGuardian?
No, so that's one of the interesting things about us is that we're not managing or monitoring at your gateway. We're managing it on the device. So that means that if students are talking to each other through a Google Doc that they're collaborating on, we're still recording all of it. We still see it all. So that also helps us not having to worry about SSL traffic. We don't have to worry about decrypting it or anything because we're looking at everything on the device as it's happening.
Okay, and then another question about integrating with Active Directory, GPO settings, security groups, etc.
Well, again, we're primarily Google focused. So in Active Directory, if you were to use a group policy, that's pretty much the limitation for us in Active Directory. Is using
well, you do. So Cassie, I think you asked that question. Our experience has been you can synchronize Active Directory and policy settings through Chrome management, and because this is a plugin to Chrome management, to an extension, those Active Directory policies or the Active Directory information and the group policies should be available to GoGuardian because it's a bolt-on to Chrome management.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
I hope that answered the question. All right, Brian, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I like the questions. All right, so let me run back over to admin again. All right, we were on Google. So after the whitelist, blacklist, we can go into the Google tab. The Google shows us all the YouTube videos, Google searches that are taking place, who's doing the Google search, time. We just keep track of all of this different data to view the search. Google Docs is also really important to us because we're in a Google environment. We can see all the Google Docs, and I can go into it from here. And then apps and extensions. We're able to see every app, every extension that's installed on those devices and kill it, blacklist it or unblacklist it from right here. So this bird's eye boxing game may be fun, probably not educational. It's been blacklisted. And once it's blacklisted, it's removed from the device and cannot be reinstalled. If the student resets, does a hard reset on the device, once they log back in, everything's back to where it was. So they get stuck in a loop. All users is pretty straightforward. It's going to be everybody. It's just another way to drill down. The new version that we have is going to be even easier. We figure that people want, when they jump into our application, they want to search for something. So we put at the top just a nice easy search bar. So you can do a search for a student's name. You can do a search for device. You can do a search for anything. This is just a universal search at the top. I'm not sure if it's working yet or not. I'm in a beta version right now, or a prototype. So search isn't working, but we did make it even super simple, more than it has been in the past. And then we do keep track of the locations of the device. And the reason we do that is for the next section, which is theft recovery. A lot of these devices are not typically being stolen, but we've had some situations where they have been. In fact, we had a situation recently where a whole cart ended up missing. And so the school called us, we turned on theft recovery, and we found that the guy was looking for a pawn shop in the area. So we knew where all the Chromebooks were, and then we also take screenshots of the Chromebook of whatever they're doing at the time. So we had the police meet the guy at the pawn shop, and just blew his mind how that happened. We had another young lady run away. So we turned on her theft recovery on her Chromebook. Turns out she was just at the mall. So she was safe. Any questions on that? Because I did want to jump into teacher, just to show teacher quickly.
Nothing new. I think we've answered, I think, all of the questions so far. There was a couple questions about the teacher module in terms of, do you have one? What does it look like? So I think the segue is perfect.
Cool. All right. Great. Now I'll run back through those questions at the end also. All right. So same thing. It's cloud-based. I'm just logging into Google or teacher.goguardian.com. No additional software required to run on the teacher machine. It does not, the teacher is not required to have a Chromebook. It could be any device that's web-enabled. We are fully aligned with Google Classroom. So if you're already using Google Classroom, there is nothing to set up. all the classes and students, everything's already imported. If not a problem. I actually created a class earlier. I don't have any students in it yet, but if there's several different ways to add students. One of them is just through an enroll code where it pops up. They enter in the enroll code through enroll.GoGuardian, and then they're stuck in our class. Another one is entering in students' email addresses or CSV import. Once you have your classes set up, we can go in and do scheduling for that class. So if I don't want to have to start that class at 9:15 every day, because it's just, I want students to come in and we want to get going, I can have that class start at 9 o'clock or 9:15 every morning, Monday through Friday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And I didn't select any days. So at 9:15, my class starts automatically, and we can get going. I can also add in a guest teacher if I have a student teacher or we have co-teaching. And then we do reporting. So at the end of the class, it will send a summary PDF that shows how much time each student spent on task. So that was all the housekeeping. I'll jump into a class and show you what it looks like. So this is Hogwarts. It already has students in it. The default class is 45 minutes. That can be changed. This one was not scheduled, so I'm just going to go ahead and hit start.
Brian, while you're doing this, just to note, because I've seen a couple questions about devices. So the devices that we're looking at, the thumbnails that we're looking at would be the students. They could be Chromebooks. They could be anything that's running a full version of the Chrome browser, correct?
That's correct.
So they could be a Windows device. The teacher's unit could be a Windows device. It could be a Mac device. You'd still have this access. The only time it doesn't work would be with an iPad that's using the mobile version of Chrome. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And from a pricing standpoint, I had a couple people ask, they can buy the teacher separate from the admin. Is that correct?
Yes, I was going to run through licensing at the end, but this is a good.
Okay, and you don't need to have both. You could buy one or the other.
Yep, they are a la carte. There are discounts for multiple products at a time. We license by the student device. So even though our products are named admin and teacher, we do not include the admin or teacher computers. It's just the name of the product. We only look at the student devices and not even student logins, because we understand there's scenarios where you may have 1,000 students but have 30 Chromebooks. So we only license by the student device. And there's also multiple years available as well. All right, so this is GoGuardian for teachers. And once I log in, my class starts. I'm greeted with thumbnails of all the student devices. I can see the active tabs, but also, and maybe more importantly, I can see the inactive tabs. So if I click on Cho, I can see that Cho's working on a spreadsheet. That's probably where we want to be. But I can also see that there's a Taylor Swift video open up on the bottom. As much as I like Taylor Swift, probably not appropriate. So I can click that little X, it sends a command to close the tab, and without disrupting the class or slowing down the momentum, there's a instant connection made with Cho and myself about, let's not watch YouTube videos right now. So there's a couple of other people I can see that have YouTube videos open. Somebody here, Ron Weasley's trying to get on Facebook. That's not allowed at class right now. But I can chat with these students too. So if I've seen Ron Weasley, he's got 3 YouTube videos open and a Facebook page open. Clearly not a lot of learning going on. I can send Ron a quick note and say, stay on task, or maybe see me after class. So that'll pop up on his screen. If I continue to have problems with Ron, I can select his computer, and at the top I get new tabs that came up, and one of them is lock screen. And I know everybody's seen something really similar to this with the eyes up front or see me after class or something like that. So this will lock down his computer. And that does not have to disturb the rest of the class. Let me see. Yeah, so it's blocked right now. So those same tabs that popped up still work for everybody else. And this is where it gets to be more of an effective teaching tool versus a policing tool. The students know that they can't get away with these things. So instead of writing on the dry erase board a 50-character URL, I can say select all and then open tab. When I hit open tab, this could be that URL that would end up taking a lot of time for everybody to get on the same page. Now I can send it out to all of the class at one time, and I know that they're all on the same page accurately. I can also lock all the screens, just like I did with Ron's. If I want to do some whole room instruction and have everybody listen to me without looking at their screen watching YouTube or whatever, I can lock them all down. So something else that came up, and this is from this ideas tab up in the top corner. We do take this seriously. I always wonder about these. If they're like, hey, submit some ideas. We do have this ideas tab, and it looks a lot like how Reddit would do it, where you could submit an idea, and the more it gets upvoted, the more attention it gets from our engineers. So to be able to lock students onto a certain website for a certain period of time, made it. It had almost 1,200 votes. This is now on our product. Same with this one that got 900 votes, essentially the same thing. So it's been launched. And then if you go through, you can see different things that teachers are looking for. So allow teachers to mirror their screen on the student computers. That one's under review right now. So that one will probably be taken care of in the next couple of weeks or months. Right, so.
I had a couple of questions, Brian, on,
yeah.
on teachers. So a couple of people asked about having a lab, for example. Is it possible, instead of having the students join each time or set up a classroom for the user, if I just wanted to set all those up as devices, no matter who was logged in, the teacher would be able to see them?
If the students are logging in with a device name, right? Because we do everything through the usernames.
Got it.
Yeah.
So it would work if they logged in as the username, but the problem is it wouldn't tie back to their profile, if you will. So that same user wouldn't necessarily get to their Google Docs, etc.
Right. So, well, if it's a one-time deal where they're coming into the computer lab one time, which I doubt that would happen.
I think there are more, and maybe who asked me that question? Oh, anonymous. Can we add 30 devices to a group that are assigned to that room, regardless of who the user that logs in? That was the question.
No, and we don't do it that way because Chromebooks are really designed to be just a tool. It's not really the focus point anymore, meaning that a student could go into a computer lab, log in, have all of their data. Student could go home, log in, have all of their data. If they lose their Chromebook, they can get a new one, log in, and still have all of their data. So the device itself isn't so much the focus as it is the student.
We had a bunch of pricing questions Brandon asked. We'll be happy to get to that at the end. See if I have any other questions that are relevant to where we are. How does it differ from Google management? Do we still need Google management? The answer is yes. Catherine had asked. I'm assuming you were asking about the admin, because what we're looking at now is quite different than Chrome management. There was another question about a utility allowing you to import rosters. I'm guessing that, you know, what we've seen, I'll just tell you what we've seen is we've seen people move their roster from their Active Directory or their SIS to a Google Classroom environment, and then sync Google Classroom with this teacher or the classroom management tool. So assuming that you have your data in Google Classroom already, then the synchronization is easy. If not, then there is a CSV utility tool to import the data you need to import to set up classes. I hope that answered your question.
Right. So really quickly too, I wanted to touch on that feature I showed you in our teacher suggestion area. We put it in there. It's called Scene. And going into scenes, we can have a bunch of them already created. We can share them out. But going in to create a scene before a class, I could name it, somebody already did French Revolution. I could do American Revolution. Then we can do for filtering, we can come up here and switch. I want to go to block mode, and it's going to block every website except for the ones that we want. So we can come up and put our own websites in, and these are whitelisted now. And this came about because of testing or quizzes. You don't want students to go to particular websites, but you want to give them maybe a list of 3 or 4 that are acceptable. Same with auto opening tabs. If I have a Google Doc that I want them to go into and start their morning with typing in their thoughts for the day, I can have it open up that Google Doc on all of their machines. So the first tab they see is that Google Doc. And then we can also limit the number of tabs they have open. And again, that came about from the testing. So if I were to say auto open a tab, it's going to be americanrev.com, and there's only one. That's all they can get to until I go and turn that scene off. So what it does is it gives teachers control in the classroom. It does not override the content filter, meaning that they cannot allow something that's blocked. We still take the most restrictive, but they can make it more restrictive. So if a particular teacher does not want YouTube in their classroom, no matter what, they can block YouTube on everything, even though it's appropriate for other classes. Yeah, so, oh, hold on, I want to go back into that. So what we do also, I'm closing the scene, but there's another view called timeline view, and that's what's kind of in the background right here. So over on the far right, you can see real time. This is now. This is what all the students are doing right now. I can see that some of them are on YouTube, some of them are on a blocked page, but this is great just to have up at the front of the room for students to be able to see, or at a glance, you can see if every student's on the right thing. I went ahead and shut the session down, or the class has ended. Now it's 10:15, everybody's packing their stuff and leaving. But if there was something that was called into question, all of it's archived. So I can go back and still see everything that happened during that class we just had. So if Hermione, let me pick one, Draco. Here's Draco. I can see that he was on Nitro Type competitive typing game. That's probably where we wanted him to be, but I can still see the other inactive tabs that were open in the back. And that's all archived. And that's where we pull that data from that sends the report back to the teacher at the end of the class to show how much time students spent on task. Supposed to be super simple and straightforward. So there are a couple of training options.
There was a question, Brian, sorry, on the timeline. How far back does it go? How much data do you keep?
Right now we have over a petabyte. So I think teachers could go back effectively 2 years or so. It really is up to the teacher. We give the district the option to delete their data when they want. We don't really have a set time right now.
So there's been a bunch of people asking questions, I guess, because they're concerned with the amount of work the teacher might have to do to set up their students. So maybe we could talk about the practicality of that and how that typically works. So the question specifically was, high school teacher has 175 students in a day and in 6 periods. How do they manage all these users? So again, once you set it up once, you only have to do that once. So your schedule for the year or the semester is pretty much set up. That roster exists in a Google Classroom, which it does for many of our customers that we service. You can synchronize with that easily. So those 6 periods or the students in all of their classes should be rostered already and can synchronize. If not, they can import a list using a CSV. They can manually type them in, or they can issue a PIN as the students come in who can join the roster for that day. Did I miss anything, Brian?
No, that's it. I mean, obviously Google Classroom is the easiest.
Yes, and that's what we see most people doing. So hopefully it does actually enhance. We're not trying to do anything to create work for the teachers. We're hoping that they can get more out of the Chromebooks in the classroom. That's right. And it would be similar to doing a Kahoot or one of those types of polling where the student has to type in the enroll code. It is that quick. They go to enroll.goguardian.com and they type in a 5 or 6 digit number.
and they're in. It's a one-time deal. They don't have to do it every class period. They do it one time.
A couple other questions. How much bandwidth does it use?
Minimal. I can't remember the exact amount because it makes a difference on what type of activities are going on, but it's in the single-digit kilobyte.
Yeah, for those of you who are used to seeing classroom management, and we've sold it for a long time, and it does, because it runs a client on a Windows device and it's pinging the network constantly, it does create more traffic than a web version that you're looking at does, for sure. And then there was another question about, we have students using either a proxy or a hotspot thing with their phone. Can they utilize those to get around GoGuardian?
No, because we're still on the device. And that's a great question. Proxies do nothing for us, that it doesn't matter.
Okay.
There's no way to get around their local device.
All right. I'm going to just shoot these from all over the place because they're coming in about all kinds. Can you delete a scene?
The teacher can, like when they're done with it.
Yes.
When they're done using the scene, absolutely. So even starting this class, I can apply a particular scene to it, and then we can delete them or I can turn it off at any time.
So there was a question about, this doesn't replace, so Linda asked a question about replacing Google Management Console. This doesn't actually replace it, it enhances it. So it isn't, this doesn't work, their admin portion does not work without Chrome Management. So there is no way around substituting this for that. I hope that answers your question. Good answers for teachers, classroom. So is there some sort of way to use Google Classroom and GoGuardian together? And the answer is yes, they work really well together, actually. So somebody asked about, does it run, somebody joined late, they said, does it run on more than Chromebooks? The teacher module does, so as long as the student or the teacher is running a device that's running not mobile Chrome, but regular Chrome browser, it will operate on that device. The teacher will be able to see it. If it's a Windows device and you can't see it with Chrome, the Chrome management, or you don't have the same flexibility in Chrome management, you have the same restrictions in the administrative piece. Am I right, Brian?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Question about theft recovery. Can the Chromebook be started remotely if it is powered off in somebody's backpack, locker, building, etc.?
If it's off, we're not going to be able to see it.
Right. You only see it when it tries to log on, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it has to grab an IP address.
Right. So Ryan asked, so you're saying that proxy will not be able to bypass a GoGuardian filter?
Correct. We're filtering on the device.
It will not.
We're filtering on the device.
Right. Oh, if they don't have Google management on all the devices, do we, will this product work is basically the question.
Yeah, so if you're using a Windows device, you could load it manually. It's an extension.
You can manage it using a teacher's device, but if they don't have Chrome management, can they run the teacher's device? Can you run the teacher's application without Chrome management?
Yes, it's just a little bit more manual because you'd have to load the extension manually. Into
all the devices.
Right.
But you could do it without, but you can't run admin without it.
You can, yeah, there's ways you can do it. It's quite laborious.
Okay.
And specifically, we do that for Windows devices because we can still load it up manually, but it's just not recommended.
So Dan asked about the theft device. Is it using a geolocator?
Yes.
And maybe at the end, so we can touch on it at the end, and others can, if they're not interested, about the GoGuardian fleet. So I've had a couple questions about GoGuardian fleet, so maybe we can touch on that at the end, Bri.
Sure.
So it has to be powered on. Yes, it has to be powered on in order to be able to see them logging on, in order to be able to find it with the theft management tool. So the classroom piece does indeed integrate. There was a question again about integrating with Google Classroom. It integrates to the point where it allows the teacher to utilize the information in GoGuardian to create the classes in the management and monitoring piece that you saw. So that's the integration of the two. All right. What else you got? You're showing the theft recovery?
Yep, and there was a question that popped about how to get a trial set up. That's another great question.
Okay.
So I'm going to go to GoGuardian.com, and up in the top right, there's a green button that says Start Free Trial. When you click on that, you would use your Google for Education login, and that's how we get you set up with your extension.
Yeah, and anybody that's interested, by all means, reach out to your CDI rep. As I said, we work closely with GoGuardian. We'd be happy to provide you with what you need to get set up for a trial version. We are an hour in now, and I think that's what you guys promised to give us in terms of time. I do have some information I'd like to talk a little bit about before we close. Was there anything, Brian, that you wanted to add, other than maybe we could spend a few minutes on the fleet section?
No, I'll just run through some of the questions. There was a question about BYOD that came up.
Yeah.
That was a little bit difficult because it's not district property. It can certainly be done, but there's just more. Yeah,
where we've seen it done, it's a policy thing where you get this student to sign off that says that, you know, they're aware that this is going on. Yeah. Because you are monitoring somebody's private device, so that makes it a little harder. There was a question earlier about how does it compare to HAPRA, H-A-P-A-R-A, the classroom management solution for Chromebooks and Windows. Do you have any comments on that, Brian?
The biggest thing, I haven't seen HAPRA lately. In just the basics of it, to be able to see screens and share stuff out, I think they're pretty similar. But where we go a little bit further above and beyond that is being able to set scenes. And I don't know if they're able to do that or not. I know that that's kind of been the holy grail for a lot of these classroom management systems, to allow teachers to sculpt how their class is going to look versus just being reacting on the screens.
Okay, well, maybe what we could do for you folks is we've got 3 or 4 competitive products that we get asked about all the time. So maybe what we'll do is put a grid together and send that out, so we'll have some comparisons. Thank you. I think we've answered all the questions that I have in front of me. By and large, are the classes set up by individual teachers or by some tech-savvy person?
Most of the time we see it just by the individual teacher. That's really, now that Google Classroom has become so prolific, that's really taken the place of it.
Okay, Patrick had asked about us doing some work on Google Admin Council. We'll be happy to do that. So keep an eye out for another invitation. We'll send a webinar invitation out. We do have for those of you who are transitioning from either Windows or Apple to Chrome and you need help getting set up, we do have a Kickstart program that is extremely inexpensive, and if you buy more than 200 Chromebooks from us, you get it for free. So by all means, reach out to your CDI rep, and they will be able to help you with some of those things. Everybody's kind of in a different spot. So talk a little bit about, before we go, about licensing and the licensing model.
So yeah, with licensing, well, we kind of touched on that a little bit earlier with licensing by the student device. And then we have the products that can all be used individually, or if you're already happy with what you have for another solution, or you want to just try a particular one in different classrooms, we can license them out individually for product, and then multiple years. You know, we see a lot of people have a 3 or 5 year replacement cycle, so bundling it all together makes sense.
Somebody asked me to repeat the part about buying over 200 devices. What's included free, we haven't shown you today. It's called the Kickstart program, and we actually walk you through setting up the Chrome management console, and give you some training and teach you kind of how to transition from your current environment to a Chrome environment. We've obviously done a lot of work in this area, and have moved that along. So Jim, let me answer your licensing question. I guess the best way I could say it is, it's a subscription-based model. So there's prices based on the number of years that you want to subscribe. Obviously, the more years you subscribe, there's a discount posted up front for that. Second of all, it's based on the number of devices, not the number of students. And you can buy admin separate from teacher, or you can buy it as a bundle. Hope you have a great day. And again, thank you very much for giving us your time. I'm hoping you found it valuable.